Hey guys, what's up? It's DNA here, and today's video is going to be about Call of Duty Advanced Warfare actually running better on Xbox One instead of the PS4. And I don't want to have this be one of those videos that goes on for like, 48 hours or whatever the amount you will, for it to be a long video, but the deal is I wanna explain everything really simple, because I know that a lot of people aren't as tech savvy as I am when it comes to things like frame rates and resolution. Like, a lot of people don't know too much about them, and a lot of people really shouldn't even say anything about them, because a lot of people don't know what the hell they're talking about when it comes to frame rates and resolution. And that's one thing that'll actually really piss me off too, is I hate when you hear people talk about, oh man, this is running so good on this, and this is why, or this is what's going on here. And guys, don't talk about stuff if you don't know about it. Like, don't just be running your mouth. I hate when people do that. I'm sure most people do. But regardless, getting into it simply, what it is this. Okay, so even though the PS4 has better hardware than the Xbox One, when it comes to the graphics unit, it's not a graphics card either exactly, but I'm just going to call it the graphics unit because I don't really know what else to call it. But the way that they optimize the game, the developers that is, what they did was, if you don't already know, okay, so the Xbox One runs Call of Duty Advanced Warfare at 1080p times 1360, I believe. And it's kind of a weird resolution. It's still 1080p, but it's like a sub 1080p. Like, it's not real 1080p. But not the 360, sorry, but the PS4 runs the game at full-on native 1080p. So it's getting the full 1080p, but with that, there are some costs. Okay, if you have a certain system, I'm gonna relate it to like the PC world, for example, real quick, because that's really easy to do. So let's say I have a certain system, and it's like a decent enough system where I could run the game at, let's say, medium, but I may get 50 frames, okay, 50 frames. So I'm still getting above 30, and it's still very smooth, but it's not the full-on 60. I can change settings in my game, or in the video settings, to make it so I'll get a 60 frames, which is really cool. And I'm surprised that consoles don't set it up that way. I don't know, maybe a lot of, I'm not trying to bash on console players here, but maybe it's just because a lot of console players aren't, Maybe they just don't have like a very extensive knowledge on like optimization, how you can get your system, I guess, to run it better. But yeah, developers have chances to utilize the hardware, and when you have a system that can run it, but maybe not run it perfectly, you have to make some sacrifices in order to get a 60 frames and achieve that. So that's what the Xbox One had to do. They had to scale their game to 1080 times 1360 to get it 60 FPS. But that is also not the case entirely, too. That's only what people are hearing. The Xbox One does run the game at full-on 1080p, but only at certain moments. So one really smart move on the developers' part here is what they did to get full-on 60 frames per second and then also achieving 1080p is they did this. So, okay, when you're just playing the game and there's not a lot of explosions going on, and you're just, you're shooting like a few guys left and right here, there's a lot of scenery, really smaller things, okay? The Xbox One is running it at 1080p, like the full-on 1080p. It's not the weird 13 times 60 or whatever, but it's just 1080p, okay? And when an explosion happens on screen, and it's like a huge one, like, like a building falling, whatever, I don't know, I haven't actually gotten a chance to play the campaign yet, but, yeah, when an explosion's going on, what will happen in most games is, since it is hard to produce, like, particle effects and render those all on your screen, you'll see a frame rate drop, so you'll see, like, the game, it'll, like, lag almost, you'll see it, kind of, like, almost pause, sort of, and that's what's happening. You're experiencing a frame rate drop, but if you have system specs that can handle it, you won't see one at all. But so what they did with this is they made it so when an explosion is going off on screen, it shows 1360 times 1080. So you're still getting 1080p, it's just you're getting slightly lower 1080p, if that makes sense. And it's just a lot better for performance. Because since you're not putting as big of a strain on your system, you're getting you're still getting the 60 frames per second. And that's a really good thing. It was a really smart move on the developers. On the PS4 side of things, it's not so much. That's not the way they do it. On the PS4 side of things, they made it so it's 1080p the entire time, and you still do get 60 frames for the most part. It is like the majority of the time you're getting 60, but you do have far more frame drops than you do on the Xbox One version. And you know, for multiplayer, you really won't experience this. It's really just campaign, but that's kind of how a lot of people critique multiplayer games. They critique it mostly on campaign, which is really kind of stupid, because I'm just saying, coming from me, my source is myself, okay? I'm a huge FPS fan, and I play a lot of FPSs. I don't really play a whole lot of other games besides story games. Like, FPS is just mostly what I play, but I usually don't play a lot of the campaigns for those games. I feel like when I'm spending the $60, it's mostly to just play with my friends and play online. I just like to do that. It's just the way it's how I spend my money on games. If I'm buying a game, I buy first-person shooters. But anyway, that's not the point. What I'm saying though is just that, yeah, when they talk about frame rates and resolution, just always keep in mind it's usually pertaining to the campaign. And yeah, I'm gonna show a game clip here in a second, so you can see what I'm talking about with the frame rates, and it won't show resolution, but you can see what I'm talking about with frame rates. I actually don't own the gameplay. I will be providing a link in the description for the guy's channel, and it's about a minute long. So yeah, you'll see what I'm talking about. Alright guys, I'm butting into the gameplay here, but I have a pretty important thing to say. If you look at the PS4 version versus the Xbox One version, you know, obviously you can see that there is a bit of a difference here. The PS4 is the more lacking version. It drops to 50 at times, while the Xbox One stays at 60 most of the time. But I wanted to point out that I think the honest reason why PS4 version is the more lacking version, and why they aren't able to hold that 60 is just because if they had actually gone with the same optimization as the Xbox One, do you know how much of an uproar that would have caused? So many people would be complaining, why do we have to be reduced to the same level of peasantry, or whatever it is you would say, for the Xbox One? Why do we have to be suffering because their console can't keep up with us? Okay, and well, you see it now that they didn't go with that situation, and you can see that one of them is the superior version. I don't see it as really that much of a big deal. I bet you a lot of people out there are going to think exactly the same way. But it's just a double standard. It's a major double standard. If PlayStation people look at it this way, you're basically getting the kind of difference that we get on mostly all the games that are coming out right now on the Xbox One. And things will improve, but this is the kind of difference that you're getting. It's not a very strong difference in copies of the game, but that's the difference that we're having to deal with. So next time that, you know, a game comes out on your system and it's running just slightly better, just keep in mind, we have to deal with this all the time. It's not that big of an issue, and now you're sort of paying for it. The console unfairness, that whole debate, console wars, you're kind of now just seeing the repercussions of it. And it's really stupid and it's really sad that it has to affect a game as big as Call of Duty, because it's really not that big a deal. Only 10 frames. That really isn't that big of a deal, but it just goes to show you, you know, that this is what can happen. And I have one final question to ask you guys. So my last question is this: would you guys rather have higher resolution or stronger frame rate? So in other words, would you guys rather have your game be prettier, or would you rather have it run smoother? Anyway, leave your comments down below. I will be listening to them.